Definitely. I mean, I'm really excited to hear about your journey since joining LinkedIn because you've kind of stratospherically risen, like no one else really. But I also want to know about your journey before. So talk to me about how you got to where you are now before you kind of even logged on to LinkedIn,
How far back do you want to go?
as far as you want to go.
Okay, so let's go through from the beginning
Yeah.
quickly. So my dad was in the Navy, and my mum was 18 when they got married, and they got married very, very, very fast because he was stationed over in Gibraltar and he wanted her to come and be with him. So she married him after just like 3 weekends together,
Oh
and then
wow.
he called her from Gibraltar, proposed. Anyway, when I came along, when my about 3 years later, they had moved back to Portsmouth. My sister came along 2 years after that. My dad had left the Navy, had a minimum wage job running his own window cleaning company, and we moved to Sussex, and that's where I sort of grew up. At when I was 8, my dad was diagnosed with lung cancer,
Wow.
and he struggled with that for 2.5 years, going in and out of remission, spending a lot of time being cared for at home and a lot of time to and from hospital.
Sorry to hear that.
Um,
Sorry to hear
these
that.
things happen.
Mm.
Um, he passed away when I was 10. From the cancer had spread from just his lungs to his stomach and his brain, and it was a very long and painful sort of demise that he had. My mum remarried not that long afterwards because she felt she needed to give us a father figure, but that didn't go so well because he left us for her best friend. And
Wow.
so that was when I was 14. I had a breakdown at 14 after I was assaulted by somebody I trusted, and I sunk into severe depression. I had severe insomnia, which made it all worse. I struggled for a couple of years, like really struggled, didn't really go to school, got involved in a lot of stuff that I shouldn't have, people I shouldn't have been involved with, drugs, alcohol, boys, nightclubs, partying, all of that kind of stuff, which at the time I thought made me happy, but was just a cry for help. And I used to cut myself quite severely. And I had my own suicide attempt at 15, which I documented. I talked about for the first time, really ever, last year for World Suicide Prevention Day, when I did a video about it on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It resulted in me leaving school when I was 16 and deciding that I just needed to go my own way. I couldn't survive at school. It just wasn't the right environment for me at that point. So I got some little job in a bakery, a little job in an office job, working for property developers. I worked in a post office, and I sort of just did lots of little jobs because I
Yeah.
had GCSEs. I actually nailed my GCSEs despite not really ever being there at school. I still came away with, I think, 13 GCSEs, which
Oh
was
wow.
quite mental. All A star to C, which was
Yeah.
ridiculous because I was barely at school in the last year. Um, and I basically just worked office jobs, office
Mhm.
manager, secretary, receptionist, until I was 26, 27. And I had a breakup. I was living with a partner in Brighton who was abusive, abusive not physically,
Yeah.
not to start with, but he was emotionally and verbally and sort of very controlling, and that
Mm.
really, really affected me a lot. And when that ended, when we realised that we were just, it was never going to work out. Um,
Yeah.
I I had to pay for my own flat because we'd moved into a flat together recently, and it's expensive living in Brighton.
Yeah.
So I had booked a holiday, and I got on a plane and I went to Thailand on my own for a month, and I found who I was again because my confidence had been shattered by the previous relationship. I had no self-esteem, no idea who I was because I hadn't been allowed to be myself for a really
Yeah.
long time. And I spent a month re-establishing who I was
Hmm.
and decided to start a business. and I started a transcription business because it was the only thing I was really good at. I used to type a lot. I'd done a little bit of work for some journalist friends in exchange for gig tickets, typing up interviews. So I started typing. Business grew really fast, and within 6 months, I was working 2 full-time jobs essentially, because I still had my office manager job. So for 2012, I literally got up at 6 a.m, did an hour and a half of work, drove to my office job, did a full day there, got home at 6:30, and by 7 o'clock I was sat till 2 a.m. working on the other job. And eventually I left the office job to pursue the transcription full time. And it was great because I could dictate my own hours. I built the business up. So I had a few people helping me, subcontractors, and it was going really well. And then I fell pregnant unexpectedly with somebody who had no interest in being a dad.
Right.
So I had my little boy on my own, and I made the decision that I was going to carry on. I had a business, I had a home, I had a dog. Like I'd be fine. It was a real surprise. I wasn't a naturally maternal person, but it just felt right. I just knew that it was the right choice. Yeah. I'm a little boy. I had to scale back the business a little bit to be able to do it full time as a lone parent. So like I had to have a C-section because he was breech, but I worked like 60, 70-hour weeks during my pregnancy to save up for all the things a baby needs.
Wow.
And then I think I was working at midnight till midnight the night before he was born. Went into hospital, had him, was walking around the park 36 hours later. I had 2 weeks maternity leave, and then I was back working full time with him strapped to my chest while I was typing. Wow. Yeah, it was intense. When I look back, I'm like, I can't believe I did all that. And that's been it really up until October 2019, where I was finally at a point where I thought I can grow the business a bit. I'm finally in a situation where he's going to childcare a lot more. He's going to be starting school this September, just gone. So I thought I can actually start thinking about growing the business, which was why I logged onto LinkedIn. My assistant Naomi was having a really hard time in her job, and she wanted to come and work with me like full time and make a full-time wage so she could give up her other job. So that's why I logged onto LinkedIn, because I thought maybe I'll be able to get in contact with some builders or building surveyors, because that's who I do most of my work for. So I started reaching out and connecting with a few building surveyors, started having a look around at what people were posting. And I literally just had a logo. I didn't have a profile picture. I haven't really filled my profile in at all. It was just that typical story, just a profile that's there in case I ever need it.
Yeah.
And then I started seeing people posting a few things and being like a little bit funny and a bit tongue in cheek, and it wasn't all as boring and as corporate as I thought. And I was super nervous, and I didn't really think that there was going to be any merit to, and who the hell would be interested in anything I had to say. Like I'm just a single mum that runs a little business. What can I contribute to this corporate world? So I didn't really know what to talk about. So I just started posting some like funny observations and things that had happened at work that were a bit sort of silly and amusing. And the following just started to grow. And I was really unaware at first. Like I didn't know what a normal amount of followers was. And it got to about 10,000 in the first 2 months. And I was like, someone said, you're getting followers really quickly. And I hadn't even looked at my follower numbers because I was connecting with people, but that wasn't on my radar. And I was like, oh, is that not normal? Like, I don't know what's normal on here, because that was never my MO. And then it just carried on. And so about this time last year, I posted a video on the moors in Cornwall saying that I was terrified because of lockdown, and that I was going to lose my business that I've been working so hard on, like literally blood, sweat and tears, hundreds of thousands of hours I've put into this business. And I was terrified because my clients, like, they're all building surveyors. They can't go into buildings. The construction sites were stopping. The doctors that I worked for couldn't do their appointments. And so suddenly all my work was like, I had 5 people working for me at that point. So the leads were rolling in massively from LinkedIn, even in the very beginning. So I'd been on LinkedIn about 5 months, and I'd gone from just me to me plus a team of 5.
Wow.
So we were really busy. And they, like, 4 of the girls were working part-time and 1 full-time. And that just stopped, completely dropped off. So there was only enough for me. And I obviously got a little bit of support from the government, but it was very little.
Yeah.
A couple of my clients were amazing, and they kept paying me their monthly retainers, even though I wasn't able to do any work for them because they didn't have anything for me. They were unbelievably loyal. And then I sort of thought about writing an ebook, and then a few people had, well, one person in particular said, don't do that, you'll be selling out, nobody's going to be interested, no one will buy it, it's ridiculous. And I was like, but hold on a minute, I've grown my following on LinkedIn from nothing to 30,000 in under 6 months. Like, there's something in that, people are going to want to know about that. And then somebody called me who'd been on a very well-known LinkedIn trainers course that's very expensive,
right?
And said, it's not been any use to me, it's just not what I was expecting, and I feel cheated. And I ended up giving her a load of advice, which she started implementing right away and started having brilliant effect from straight away. And she said, you should be selling this.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, well, if somebody's selling it and charging all this money and it's not working, and my method is working, which I can see it's working, maybe there is some legs to this. So I offered a few free coaching sessions just to get some feedback on whether they thought that I had enough knowledge to make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
So they said yes, they would have paid for it. So I started charging, and I booked very quickly, lots of sessions very quickly. And then I got absolutely bollocked by a couple of them that said, you are not charging enough, this is ridiculous. And they insisted on giving me coaching in return and paying back the favor, because they were like, you have not charged enough for this, and I feel bad for having taken it at that price, so I'm going to give you some coaching for free. And it was other women that had done this, and I was like, okay, hold on a minute, these are successful women, I need to take notice of this, they know what they're talking about more than I do. So I doubled the price and I booked up straight away, for a month in advance. And by the middle of that month, I was booked up for the following month. And it kept up like that until I upped the price again at the end of September. I revised the course, I added more to it. I had a group, so I have a LinkedIn group for all of the people that I've coached to support each other. They're absolutely expressly forbidden from asking for engagement on each other's content, but they refer into each other. If they've got an idea for a post, they'll talk about it. Others will suggest. They've all been through the coaching, and they all really support each other, because I can't support over 200 people individually now. But it's a completely free group, and they're all able to, I've updated my profile, what do you think? I've got these ideas for a headline, which one do you think is better? Do you know a good VA who specializes in this? And we all ask each other. And loads of them have done business together now as well, which is, it's like almost like a power networking group, but with no engagement requests.
Phenomenal.
Because obviously that's one of the things that I'm, I guess, known for, is the organic strategy.
Absolutely.
So that kind of takes us up to nearly now, where I've been literally fully booked since July. I've had no spaces. Every gap that I've opened, if a cancellation has been on, I've had people that are literally checking the website every day for a cancellation or an availability to pop up. And then messaging me going, I've just seen that you've got availability, I've just booked it. I'm like, oh my God. I announced 2 weeks ago that I'm having a break from coaching from mid-March to mid-April. Because I need to take some time off to do some business development. Because I've got other ideas and more resources I want to come up with, and a new coaching package that I want to put out. And I've literally been coaching once or twice a day for God knows how long. I haven't had a break at all since Christmas. So I told everybody that I only had 10 spots left before mid-March when I take my break, which was true. And because I'm a pushover, I booked 14 in 24 hours. So I was like, oh my God. And then I was not going to take any more bookings until during my break. But so many people asked me if they could book for the end of April. I was like, fine, like I'll open the slots at the end of April, and they're now completely booked.
Wow.
And I just opened my calendar yesterday for May. And I've just had a booking this morning for the new coaching package at the new price, which terrified me to be charging that.
Sure.
Based on my history and, you know, what I'm charging now for me is like a week and a half's wages in my sort of previous existence.
Yeah.
So it's hard to get my head around it. But yeah, so that's the first one sold, and I've got a webinar that I'm doing at the end of March, which I'm going to be telling everybody exactly what I've done, all of the where I find content, how I engage with people, how I'm building trust with people. Like whenever I post something about someone, that person just gets so much engagement, so much. So like I was posted looking for a job for somebody a couple of weeks ago, and he had a job offer within 6 hours.
Amazing.
Which was incredible.
Yeah.
I posted about a lady called Anna last week, saying that because she's doing some copywriting for me and she's amazing. She literally dropped into my inbox. She's like, look, I haven't worked for a couple of months. I love your coaching. I really want a coaching session. Could I swap it for a day of copywriting? And I was like, here's a picture.
Yeah.
I was like, you got my attention, because it's such a brilliantly crafted message. I said, you've got my attention. Here's a picture. Write me a post in my voice. And she sent it back in 5 minutes, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So she's basically using who I am to help or using who a client is, and she writes in their voice, and she does it beautifully. But my trouble is I don't have enough of me to go around. So she's not writing all my content yet, but she's able to. So I gave her a coaching session, but I also promised that I'd post about it to help boost her business. And she ended up having 30 Zoom calls in the next 2 days.
That's phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, I don't know where to start with that. I mean, that's such an inspiring story. And I think your authenticity personified. And I think because it's been such a meteoric rise, I sense and feel that kind of imposter syndrome. You don't know, you're not comfortable with what you're charging. But I want to go back on your story in a second. But I just think maybe the difference between you and some other people in your sphere is that you coach people how to do it and then allow them to flourish in their own voice, as opposed to constantly writing it for them. And I think that's a big differentiator. Do you as well?
Yeah, I empower people to do it themselves, because the biggest thing that I find with a lot of my clients is they don't realize how interesting their journey is to the people around them. And that is the hugest thing. When you actually say to them, when I actually speak to somebody, I say, okay, so why did you start your business? What made you leave the comfort of your job to start the business? What was the passion? What are the things that you've learned from doing that? What's been the journey? How did you get the job in the first place? How did you learn the things that you needed to? What have been the struggles in business? I'm like, all of this stuff, all of it is interesting to your network, because they're either ahead of you and can relate to what you're going through now, or they're not where you are yet and will learn from what you've got to say. So all of that is interesting. And when you actually say to somebody, hold on a minute, the only reason you've not felt interesting is because you've not allowed people to be interested in you. You haven't told anyone anything. And when they do, and they start actually writing their story, and they see that they get engagement from it, and they get people messaging them going, thank you for sharing that. I really needed to hear that today. And it gives them that confidence.
I think
it's massively built my confidence up.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, and you've given me a window into your style around. It's just asking the right questions, because the authenticity, the brilliance is inside each person, isn't it? It's just getting that to the surface and giving them the confidence to say, you can take them to water, but they've got to drink. It's all there for them, isn't it?
I don't go into so lots of people will drag out LinkedIn coaching over 6 week, 8 week masterminds and all this. You don't need that. You need to understand how to engage with people and how to dig into yourself and realize that what you have to say is interesting. And I can do that in 90 minutes. I can do that in 90 minutes with somebody. Wow. All of my previous clients, because just sitting with somebody for 90 minutes and being interested in what they have to say, and then there are lots of techniques that you can learn to help things on LinkedIn about how to connect with the right people and what to do to build these warm connections. and understanding how the algorithm works as much as you can understand how the changeable algorithm works. But there are things to keep in mind. And I teach all of that. But the biggest thing is actually saying to people, you have so much to contribute to this community. And it is a community, and you need to stop thinking about LinkedIn as a social networking platform, and treat people and treat interactions as if they were in the room face to face with you.
Absolutely. So your tone of voice, your posts will be how you would talk to someone in the pub or in a room, not this what's the word? This prescribed, formatted kind of approach. It's just being yourself.
And if I write all the content myself for somebody, they're reliant on me forever. And I don't have capacity to support that. I can't grow my business if I have 200 people relying on me to write content. I can't do that. I'm not about how much money I can make from each person. That is not my goal. When I meet a client, they might pay me £600 for my one-to-one session, but that will be the only thing they pay me ever. And they will go out and they will implement the strategy, and they will grow their own community, and their business will grow. The leads will start coming in, maybe not immediately, but they will start coming in. They always do. And I don't want someone paying me £600 every month to do it. And that's not business sense, but that's not my goal.
No.
My goal is to train as many people as I can before I take the next step in my career. I'm not going to be one-to-one coaching forever.
That was my next question, is without going a bit kind of woo on you, is about asking what your why is, in terms of, why are you doing this? And I'd like to hear more about that, and then go back on your story as well. But what's your kind of next step and your kind of future goal and your why about all this?
So I'm hosting the webinar at the end of March, while I have this sort of month off. I'm making my online course. So everything that's taught in my one-to-one, not the bespoke stuff, obviously, not the one-to-one sort of confidence building side of things, but the actual bones of how to use LinkedIn to the best advantage, and finding your ideal clients and all of that. That's going to be an online course that people can buy, because I need to create a residual income.
Sure.
I want to develop more products to help people learn how to create great content. And I've got some collaborations planned on that. I want to get into actual businesses. I want to go and do LinkedIn corporate training for big teams, but not just about LinkedIn, like actually how to network effectively with the people around you, and how to engage and build trust with them, because that's probably my biggest strength, is actually how to build trust with people. It's a bit of a self journey of discovery, because I didn't know I was able to do all of these things when I started on LinkedIn. It's almost like these like hidden talents that I had no idea were even talents. I've always been able to engage with people, and my friends will tell you that I'm always the kind of person that no matter what room I go into, people want to be around me. They want to come near to me. They want to talk to me. I can't explain it. It's just always been that way. I've always been the kind of person that people gravitate towards. I think a lot of people say that it's because I'm very relaxed, and like people are comfortable around me because they don't feel like they have to pretend to be anyone else. And that's always been the way. And my son's the same, and my mum's the same. People are always very relaxed around my mum. And I think my dad was a very a happy, outgoing, very comfortable in himself kind of person. And people would just his funeral was absolutely packed. The church was overflowing with people. And that's always been my why.
Oh, that's amazing. I think I take my hat off to you around all the adversity, all the kind of trauma you've had from a very 10 years old, having a death, 14, and then the abuse. And, I've had a similar path around some adversity as well. But I've always found it quite difficult to kind of be myself. I mean, how have you managed to kind of, there's 3 or 4 major things there. I mean, and you actually mentioned the abuse at 26 is the biggest one, but surely, going back to the age of 10 and 14, how do you feel that's affected you positively and negatively? Because my sense is that it's obvious, I think you get a choice. You get a choice to victimize yourself, or you get a choice to use it as a gift to help others and serve others. And I think you've definitely done that. But can you talk to me about how you've managed to gain that strength and that resilience?
I think, so I had this conversation with somebody else recently. Around the age of 10, supposedly, is when we start really noticing outside influences and how we should be to impress other people. and that's when we really start becoming aware of it. I got that from a book, I can't remember which one, but I was reading and thinking that kind of makes sense. So at 10 I was dealing with grief and losing my dad, and what other people thought of me was the least of my concerns. I didn't care, like just getting through each day. And I was about to start secondary school. Like I didn't have space to be caring about what other people thought of me. And then I had a really good group of friends in secondary school who were all a little bit misfits. And I was never one to really engage in group stuff that much. Like I didn't care about popular kids. I would be friends with whoever, whether if they were a nice person, I was friends with them. But I had such a lot going on, like recovering from grief and going through my own like severe depression and insomnia and problems at home with my family situation. I did not give a shit if other teenagers liked me or not. Like that was at the back of my mind. If other children who had no way to relate to what I was going through didn't like who I was,
fuck it.
It didn't matter. I think that's where it's all come from to start with. Like I was a goth. I had black hair. I was getting tattoos. I had piercings all up my 30 odd piercings in my ears. My tongue was pierced, and like I looked like an oddball. And people tried to bully me. But it didn't ever work, because to bully someone, they have to care what you think of them. And I didn't give a shit. Like, I was like, are you serious? I don't care. I'm dealing with like grief, insomnia, depression, self-injury, suicidal ideation. What Jenny, the 14-year-old slapper from my art class thought of me. It didn't matter. So I think I just bypassed that. And then I didn't go to university. So I didn't go through all that peer pressure of how I should be or what I should look like or how I should behave. I didn't do all of that. I just have always made my own way. And no matter what anybody has said to me about what they think I should do, like you shouldn't leave school. If you leave school, you'll never get a good job. You shouldn't get those tattoos because you'll never get a good job. I was like, yeah, I will.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want a job. I don't want a good job. Like if I'm going for a job, I've never been for an interview and not been offered the job, because I walk in there with the confidence that I can bloody well do the job, and they're mad not to hire me. Yeah. And I think the accent helps.
Absolutely. I think you're there for all to see. You know, you are what you are, and I think that's the main reason why you've been successful, is because you don't really give a fuck. You know, you are. No, you don't.
I love that's. I mean, I wouldn't say I don't give a like. I love what's happened on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I love that I get messages on a daily basis from people saying, "Thank you for posting this. This really helped me.
Yeah.
The way you are has really inspired me to be a bit more myself." And like that means the world to me. So I do care, but I don't care if there's negativity, because I don't. It doesn't sit on my mind that some random person I've never met doesn't like something, or that they've blocked me, because they're not going to be my clients. They're not going to bring anything to my life. So
yeah, I think you kind of you're famous in LinkedIn, aren't you? But I think where people misconstrued someone like yourself is that you're still a bloody human being. And I've seen some of your posts, and I can see and feel your kind of vulnerability, and sometimes you're anxious, and I think your ability not to shy away from that and be open about that. But talk to me about kind of when you rise to the top, around people maybe treating you a bit differently, and how you kind of deal with that. And you know, I'm sure you get lots of good and bad people trying to talk to you and all sorts.
I basically just don't respond to people that are saying. I've got an autoresponder on my LinkedIn now, because I do deal with all my LinkedIn correspondence myself, which is it's really excessive. I don't like it when people send me messages that comment on how I look, whether it's positive or negative. I don't care what someone thinks about my appearance at all. I don't care if someone likes my tattoos. I don't care if someone thinks my eyes are pretty. I don't care if they think that my tattoos have ruined me. It doesn't matter to me, because I don't thrive off other people's compliments on something that I have no influence over. This was my parents doing. Right? So a compliment on that for me is like, I can't take credit for it. It's not I didn't do it. So if somebody's complimenting on me on the way I look, I'm just like, if someone compliments my sense of humor or my writing or my ability to help people, that I love that, because that's me. The way you look, it's just a shell.
Yeah.
It's not. And so, you know, it can have its uses.
Yeah.
I'm not stupid. There are certain things that you can do when you look a certain way that
of course.
You can use it to your advantage. But I'm not, I wouldn't rely on it. And it's not something that I want to discuss, especially not on LinkedIn. I just don't care. So I hate that. I love it when people send me messages telling me how something I said or done has influenced them positively, because that spurs me on. That makes me realize that despite the negative stuff, it's worth doing. When I can help charities, when I can, you know, I do things under the radar. Like, I don't go donating to charities and posting, look how much money I've made for charity. I don't really, I help job seekers, like, quite frequently. I've done a couple of like job seeker group trainings, but I don't talk about it on LinkedIn, because I'm not doing it for glory. I'm doing it because I can afford to do something and help. And I've given out, like, never to people who ask, but I've randomly just given out one-to-one coaching sessions to people who I know need it and can't afford it, because I can do that. But it's never people who ask. I always want to do it for people who would, you know, because when you ask, it comes across as begging, doesn't it? And it's a bit like, I can't do that, because if I start doing that, everyone's going to do it, and you have to have boundaries.
Of course.
I find people who message me constantly to ask and take that, that drains me. And that's like mentally draining, when people are like, can you comment on this? Can you like this? Can you engage on this? Can you share this for me? Can you do that? And it's like, do you realize how many of these I get per day? But you don't care. You just want something for yourself. And I can't do that. So I just don't do it at all.
Yeah, no, that's fair. You got to draw the line. I think touching on this whole time management piece, obviously, you've just said that you manage your own LinkedIn account, but, you know, with you've got a young son, you've got 2 dogs, you've got a house to run, and 80,000 odd connections now, I think it is, and God knows how many clients. How do you manage it, or are you planning to kind of be a solo wolf still, or do you want to?
No, I've got a PA who helps me with she's helping me with my website. She helps me write copy for like my sales copy. She's going to be taking on more responsibility at some point. I've also got my best friend is going to be, so she's not back. She's a nurse, but she's got 2 children, and she finishes on her maternity leave soon, and she can't really viably go back to nursing at the moment. So she's going to help me for a while, because she's the most organized person I know. So she's going to whip me into shape a bit, because I'm really disorganized. Like, I'm not late to things. I'm always like just in time, but I'm also I'm quite chaotic. Like, I don't really have any routines. I don't like routines. I'm not one of these people that can work to routines at all. I've never been able to do that. I have to wake up in the morning and decide what I'm doing on the day. And the only thing that deviates from that is obviously the coaching sessions that are booked. But that's something that I need to work on, because it does cause stress now, because my life is so different. I don't manage my time well. Like, I'm replying to LinkedIn messages at 10 p.m, 11 p.m. Like, I've got Trello boards with lists coming out of my ears.
Why be conventional though? I think that's part of you, and why you're successful is you don't have to follow certain rules and conventions to an extent, but I guess it does reach a point where you kind of have to as well.
That I need to get some help to do that more. I've also recently discovered, so a friend of mine is a qualified psychologist.
Oh wow.
And since knowing her, she said to me that she thinks I'm ADD. Which I've never known before, but on exploring it, it has made a lot of stuff make sense.
So I know what ADHD is. What's ADD again?
Attention deficit disorder. So I'm not hyperactive. I don't have hyperactivity, but the inability to focus. So like, I'm sitting here fiddling with this thing in my hand. I'm always fiddling with something, because it's really hard for my mind to focus on one thing for a long time. And it became quite clear with coaching because I really have to draw my attention back to who I'm speaking to. And it's a really focused effort for me to do it. My chaotic lifestyle, my kind of impulsivity, my talkativeness, and my tendency to interrupt people when they're speaking. And there's a whole bunch of symptoms. And I was reading through it, and then I did the online self-assessment.
Yeah.
And I literally, like, everything was, I was like, oh shit. Okay, maybe it doesn't make any difference, but it explains things.
I think what you said there, I think I've definitely got that as well. You know, I'm fiddling with this thing here, and I've given up smoking recently, and think it's about that.
Oh, congratulations! You've actually done it.
Yeah, you helped me with that as well. But I think it's you know, that everyone's got their little quirks, and I think it's just about owning it, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, I've just found coping mechanisms over the years to deal with the behaviour. And I've discovered that a lot of entrepreneurs are very similar. And actually, that's what makes us so good at being entrepreneurs, because we will either laser focus or we're doing, like, I will try and do 10,000 things at once, and I'll start a task in the house, get distracted by something else, and end up half doing 10 things instead of actually just doing one thing and then moving on to the next. And that's just how I am. That's how I've always been. But I do need to. Yeah. But I love that's why I need to do something other than coaching, because I need other things to keep my mind busy. And I'm super creative. And while that's great with the coaching, and it's great when I'm like helping people to come up with content ideas and they're telling me their story, and I'm like, that, they will be amazing posts. You need to write about that. And I will sometimes just message my clients going, oh my God, I've had this amazing idea. Like, and that stuff pops into my head just all the time.
It's like creativity.
I want to do like creative consultancy eventually. I want to work with big brands on their marketing campaigns. I think you'll
be amazing at it, and I think that's also why you're successful as well. It's kind of like you're always looking for the next thing as well. And I think LinkedIn's great, but it's still one little world. It's one world, isn't it? You know.
LinkedIn is a stepping stone. I love it, and I'm never going to just abandon LinkedIn because my network and my community there are just beyond valuable to me, and they have created some of the most incredible opportunities. There is no way I would be doing any of the stuff and having any of the conversations. I've got people in America talking about flying me out there for talks, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, I've had TEDx want me to do a talk. I can't talk anything more about it, but I will be doing one at some point.
I look forward to that.
Confirmed.
Yeah.
And it's just like, this is stuff that I never in a million, like, my wildest dreams, I used to go, oh, one day it'd be really nice to have a job where I got a salary of like 40 grand.
Yeah.
That was the epitome for me of making it. That was like 40 grand, and I'd be able to live nice and comfortably and maybe get a little mortgage.
Yeah. One final question before we stop. Just now we're probably going back to normal. How's that transition going to be? For me personally, on one hand, I'm really excited by it, but on the other hand, I'm a little bit kind of nervous about integrating back into how it was, because I think there's certain elements of lockdown that have been really beneficial. What about you?
I'm really looking forward to my son getting back to socialising with his friends, and me and our relationship improving, because it's been very tense to be in each other's pockets 24/7, and not being able to see family, and not having any help with childcare, like no weekends off, no lions, nothing, no help at all, apart from my wonderful neighbour that's been homeschooling him 2 hours a day. I am nervous about the next stage of business for me and where that's going to take me, because obviously all of this really has happened during lockdown. Like, the big numbers have happened during lockdown. And then last summer, I was out in Brighton and I got recognised a couple of times by people who came up to me. I got recognised in the supermarket around here recently. And then like messaged by people saying, oh, I saw you and all this. I'm like, and while they're people that I've interacted with, and like some of them are people that I've coached, well, one of them was, he's not somebody that said hello to me, because I would have said hello, but that makes me really uncomfortable. That's what gives me anxiety. And while 75,000 people is not that many people when you're looking at the world globally, but I guess it's because enough. I'm quite distinctive, it's hard to hide.
Yeah.
And it's even harder as the summer weather comes, because like I'm wearing clothes that show my tattoos and people notice
Yeah.
me. Like they can't miss the flash of blonde hair and all that.
Yeah.
That's what makes me nervous.
Mm.
Like the idea of going into London for a meeting
Yeah.
and people on the tube like side-eyeing me because they recognize me, or someone approaching me and
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, are you Lea? I follow you on LinkedIn." And I'm like,
Yeah.
there's probably no reason, because if they're normal and they introduce themselves to me, it's fine. I think it just makes me a little bit anxious of how that's going to develop. It's not like
Yeah.
I'm like some super celebrity and
No,
going to
I
be
know what you
mobbed
mean.
in the streets, but it's just that
Yeah.
kind of feeling that people could be watching, and I've never been the kind of person that's wanted to be famous ever.
No.
It
No. No.
never even entered my head.
I
I'd
can see
never want
that.
to go on a
I can see that.
reality TV show. People get the idea
Yeah.
that because I choose to cover myself in tattoos,
Yeah.
that I must be like the kind of person that wants to be in the limelight and be the center of attention all the time. And actually, it couldn't be further from. I'm comfortable in the limelight if I have to be, but
Yeah.
it's not somewhere I would choose to be
So
voluntarily.
won't be seeing you on the jungle anytime soon, no?
No, but you know which one I would do?
Go on.
The island,
Oh
the Bear
right,
Grylls
yeah, yeah.
Island. I
Oh,
would
that.
100% do
Oh,
that.
I'd love to see you on that. That's amazing. Now I reckon you do
I
quite
would
well actually.
love to do that. I absolutely would love to do it.
You like all that kind of survival stuff, do you?
No, but I would on a desert island.
Right. Sounds
Like I get
amazing.
to spend 4 weeks on a desert island, and
Sounds
I don't
amazing.
have.
Yeah.
I would, yeah, I would 100%. I would 100% do that for sure. I would love it, but not any of the others, because you can be. You fade back into obscurity off that one, don't you? There's no. It's
Yeah.
not like Love Island.
Well, Leah, it's been absolutely amazing. I'm so honoured and proud to have you on and talk to you. I've learned so much from this conversation. Before
Thank
we
you for
go,
inviting me.
that's all right. Any tips from anyone? I noticed you using CBD at the moment, but any kind of general kind of non-LinkedIn tips, like life tips or anxious tips or that kind of stuff?
Stop living your life now as if retirement is guaranteed.
Love that. Love that.
I like that one.
Live now, but live for now and just make,
Yeah.
make, make the most of it. That's
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me along. It's been good.
Thank
Finally,
you.
we have been chatting a while, haven't we?
We have. I'm going to stop recording now.